Good day. October 7th is now etched in history. It was long before the events of 2023. October 7th was celebrated in Russia as the birthday of Vladimir Putin, the president of Russia. But due to events of October 2023, October 7, 2023, Hamas carried out a raid into Israel, and that raid led to abduction and death of quite a lot of Israelis. And Hamas carried home some hostages. They're still hanging on to some of those hostages 2 years later. The world has changed by that singular action of October 7, 2023. If not the whole world, at least the Middle East. But the greater part of the world, which is Eurasia, that part that involves Europe and Asia, has also changed, no doubt, due to the activities and the administration of Vladimir Putin over the great country of Russia. You may not know that Russia is a great country, but if a country spans 11 time zones, has one of the world's largest reserves of oil, has maintained an empire for several centuries, and has remained one big united country despite several attempts to invade them, then you'll know that they're a great country. They are. Because in between the times that the Russian state has existed, quite a lot of other empires have come and gone, believe it or not. Ottoman Empire has come and gone. The British Empire has come and gone. And even in Poland, even in Europe, Central Europe there, the Austro-Hungarian Empire have come. Empires come and empires go. But somehow states like Russia, China, Iran, they continue to evolve. They continue to go through transformation and different forms of configuration. In the case of Russia, in fact, they expanded so much that they had to find a way. They felt it was not in their best interest to be that wide. So they sold off one part of their country called Alaska to the Americans. Because if they didn't, they felt that the British will take it from them. So Vladimir Putin was charged with administering this country. At the time, the country was very sick, very poor, very broken. In 1999, December 31st, he was appointed acting president. Today is his birthday, October 7th. As one who comments on global geopolitics, the imprint and the role that Vladimir Putin has played in Eurasia and in Europe and extensively in crafting the New World Order. The New World Order used to be one where the hegemony of America was completely the defining aspect of that New World Order a few years ago. But President Putin, and I must add, his very good friend, they visited each other over 45 times. They have a comprehensive strategic agreement and arrangement between themselves, partnership between themselves, and that's Xi Jinping of China. They've created a new world now, the multipolar world. The world where if smaller states can get what they want from the West, they will go seeking what they need from either Russia or China. It used to be a world when you were told what to do by one of the Western institutions, G7, G20, or maybe the Bretton Woods institutions, IMF, World Bank. It's what they told you. You took it or you left it. There was no other place, no other choice. But in the multipolar world, you could go seeking for bank loans, or you could go seeking for funding and finance from China, or possibly even, maybe someday, from Russia. So President Putin is celebrating his birthday today, and the imprint he has had in Russia is one that the Russians are very grateful for. But today also, Hamas and the Palestinian people, who would have thought that 2 years down the road, the whole world will be calling for free Palestine? Because the circumstance under which the world is chanting free Palestine is totally different from what it should have been. Last year, 1 year ago, the Israeli state was bitter and angry and vengeful. They wanted to destroy and eliminate Hamas completely. They've done so well in destroying 25,000 Hamas soldiers, Hamas foot soldiers. But unfortunately, Hamas has recruited another 25,000 soldiers to replace that amount that has been eliminated by the Israeli IDF. But it is rather in a very unseen, unplanned, and unknown way. It is the Israelis that had a muted celebration on October 7th. They were at the back foot. The world has turned against them. And October 7th now is not a day that they can go and want to celebrate. It was a day, rather, that the whole streets of Europe, the streets of Mexico were filled with people, the streets of Australia chanting free Palestine. October 7th has actually reshaped the Middle East. And if we add the birth of Putin, reshaped Eurasia. Good day. Welcome to my channel, Ebima Amungo's Perspective on Global Affairs. If you're new to this channel, please subscribe. If you have any opinions regarding the views I express in this video, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. President Putin. Who would have thought that one who was a former KGB agent in Germany became close to Boris Yeltsin, somehow got himself into Moscow. He was in St. Petersburg, but he felt that his lot as an administrator would grow more in Moscow. He moved to Moscow, meandered his way into the inner circles of Boris Yeltsin's presidency and government, and ultimately was appointed prime minister. And at the death of Boris Yeltsin in 1999, he became the was appointed the acting president at the time that Boris Yeltsin resigned. He resigned before he died, I should point out. So acting president, and then later on, a few months down the road, he became president. President for 2 terms, became prime minister, and then since 2012, he has been president. In fact, the constitution was changed in 2020 to accommodate a new reality where he will have the ability to serve 2 terms that are now 6 years each. This is well on to the 5th year of his first tenure. He can be on that seat till 2036 if he has a long life. If he manages to survive the intrigues of politics. But he has done a great job. At the time he took Russia was down and out. Russia economically was down. Russia had a war with and conflicts in the Caucasus. The Chechen wars were going on there. There was rebellious activity within that area. The soft underbelly of Russia, the Caucasus, was one that was being exploited by the CIA to try to undermine Russia. The process of undermining Russia did not start today. Russia is a big country, large border, and they have to look out for their border all the time. But Putin, in between these years, have reconfigured the economy and reshaped the stature of Russia within the Euro-Asian geopolitical space. That cannot be denied. It may not have been the intent. The intent was that he wanted to subsume Russia into the greater Euro-Asian project or the greater European project, NATO, EU. He failed woefully. There's big distaste of Russia among the European elites, and it was just an enterprise in futility. He just could not do it. But when he felt NATO expansion was getting to be too close in 2007 at the Munich Security Conference, he put out a warning that we may be weak, but please, NATO expansion is a threat to our security. That was the first time the Russians started to assert themselves. The economy was doing better, much better, but ultimately, Russia was undermined. The CIA, the MI6, German intelligence, and all the European institutions who felt that it was not in Russia's position to be able to tell who can be a member of NATO or not. Brzezinski, who I mentioned yesterday, had always said that it is very imperative if America wants to continue to hold its sway in the Euro-Asian geopolitical space, that it should find a way to break Ukraine out of Russia's sphere of influence. And that was what was done. In 2014, the coup that brought the new government that was Western-leaning was one that finally prompted Russia into action. There was prompt seizure of Crimea, ultimately a referendum in Crimea that led to the annexation of Crimea because the people there said they wanted to be part of Russia. But it was also the point when the protests in Luhansk, in Donetsk, the Donbass started. And that regional protest ultimately led to two agreements, the two Minsk agreements, one in 2015 and one also in a second one, the Minsk too, which were not really followed and agreed to. Ultimately, the Biden administration came in, and the Biden administration was very, very, very hawkish, very snobbish, and prompt and prodded Russia into taking a very drastic action, which, despite a summit between Putin and Biden in 2021, it ultimately led in 2022 to Russia taking action against the Ukrainian state. First, trying to put pressure by invading into Kiev, but ultimately refocusing on trying to get full control of the Donbass, Kherson, and Zaporizhzhia. So this is where it is now. That war that has started in October 2022 has done a lot to transform the whole world. NATO and the European states completely and totally put immense pressure and sanctions in an attempt to break the Russian economy, break the Russian will, and break the Russian people, so that ultimately they will be so much in discomfort they will chase away Putin. Rather, Putin turned it around, made new alliances, stimulated the economy, found new friends, and now Russia is completely producing all those things that the Europeans used to do. They found ways to survive, ways to strengthen their economy, and ways to continue to trade with the whole world. It was a failed project on the European and the NATO part. The calculus was wrong, and it was Putin. And that failure of NATO, that defeat of Europe, and defeat of NATO, that inability of NATO to assert its will on Russia, may have a lot to do with China. The partnership was very strong. And now we see a tripartite partnership, one feared very much again by Brzezinski. They found a way to bring Iran into the orbit and into a greater relationship and closer relationship with Russia. This war has changed the whole dynamics in Eurasia. But talking about Iran and how they ended up being very close um, to Russia, it has everything to do with October 7th again. October 7th created the opportunity not only to destroy Palestine, but also to go after all the states which the Israelis called the axis of evil, the states that are seven supporters of the Palestinian cause. Hezbollah was one of them. Nasrallah was killed, was an excuse, good one, and Nasrallah was killed in Lebanon. Hezbollah was put on the back foot. Assad, who had always supported created a pathway for Hezbollah to have access to Iran, he was replaced. It was a very great opportunity for an expansionist Israel. We know of the Greater Israel Project. We don't know Israel as the only country that does not have a land border. They just have an amorphous map. There's no delineated map for Israel because they still have a lot of land they want to acquire. So this is October 7 created that opportunity. They ultimately, with the connivance and the active involvement of the Turks and the HTS, Assad government fell. And beyond Assad government and Hezbollah, Israel has expanded, but Israel went out to destroy Palestine in such a manner that it finally became repugnant to quite a lot of people in the world. Institutions, especially the South Africans, started to say, apart from the fact that there was apartheid, which they've always asserted, South Africa, we should understand, the country that suffered apartheid policies, and they recognized it when they saw it in Gaza. They complained about the apartheid in Gaza, but they were the first to start to shout about the genocide in Gaza. They went to the ICC and got Netanyahu indicted. But it's been in these past few months that this cry has reached such a point that activists, politicians, governments, and presidents are now beginning to call their Israeli state a genocidal state. It's such a big turnaround. Israel is under immense pressure. October 7th is not a day they look forward to. And it was for that reason that the British Prime Minister put out a statement today that there shouldn't be demonstrations that is insensitive to the actions taken against the Jews and Israelis in Israel on October 7th. He was trying to stave off demonstrations by Free Palestine activists. The narrative has changed. October 7th is now a day that Israelis will now be looking to with trepidation. The crowds that come out, a crowd as never before seen in Australia, came out in support of Palestine, and a gadfly in the name of Greta Thunberg and her co-travelers in the Samud Global Flotilla have put out unrelenting stream of accusations against the Israeli state. They are not in a good place at this point in time. October 7. October 7 is a day that created Putin, who has reshaped Eurasia and created the conditions for Netanyahu to extend Israeli strength and power, show his projection, but it was also a day that made him reach out and overstretch Israel. Using the excuse of October 7th and feeling that Israel had done quite a lot in conquering all the enemies of the state after Nasrallah and after Assad, he went after Iran. But that was a bridge too far. Israel was pounded and they had never seen anything like that. Despite the fact that the Americans were supporting them, the whole Gulf states were interdicting and preventing Iranian missiles from getting into Israel. Israel was pounded with missiles we had never seen before. Fatah, huge 2,000-pound warhead missiles, hypersonic missiles that did so much damage. The stock exchange, the Microsoft office, the defense headquarters. The list goes on and on. That was a turning point in the invisibility, the Iron Dome, all those air defense systems that were hyped. They had no response to the Israeli barrage of drones and missiles. Of course, no doubt, Israel too did show that it had some capacity. It did some massive damage on Iran. But what it had only done is that it has sensitized Iran and it pushed them to throw away all their fears of the Soviet state and also the Russian state, because we should know one thing. Vladimir Putin is a friend of the Jews. His best friends are Jews. He has great relationship with the Jewish community in Russia. In fact, that association and linkages with the Jews is one that when they asked him, he said the Israel problem is a problem for Russia because apart from Hebrew, Russian is the second largest spoken language in Israel, because a lot of the people who immigrated to Israel were actually Russians. And he was worried about it. But the Iranians threw away all that fear and all that hesitation and moved to seek better relationship with the Russians. Now the Russians are providing them with weapon systems we don't know. Over the past 2 weeks, huge transport planes, IL-76 planes have just been leaving weapon manufacturing centers in Russia and headed towards different points in Iran. We already know that they've received some MiG-30 29s, but we also know that they may also be receiving Su-34s. In fact, there was a display somewhere in Moscow there where some Su-35s that may be heading towards either Iran or possibly Algeria were being tried out. So this relationship is one that was the horror for Brzezinski when he wrote his great chessboard. Putin, a great administrator. We hear now that there may be some people so unhappy with Putin that they may be planning stuff. But this is a man who now enjoys 80% popularity rating from the polls. Young, old, middle-aged. They thank him for what he has done in revitalizing the economy, but it is not just the economy. It is the fact that through his ability to organize men, he has created a Russia that has won back the pride of the Russian state for amongst the populace, 146 million people. Now, on the converse side, Russia's benefit in having Putin is Ukraine's nightmare, because Ukraine has lost 4 oblasts, and Ukraine don't particularly respect Putin. He doesn't respect Zelensky, and Zelensky doesn't respect him anyway. But the horror, they would like to see him. Budinov had said, the head of the FSB, military intelligence, has said they've made several attempts to assassinate Putin. Putin is a nightmare to the Ukrainians. And his insistence that he's going to demilitarize, denazify, and possibly liquidate the Ukrainian state is one that creates a lot of worry. Every day we hear the refrain from Zelensky that the partners, The partners need to sanction, they need to take collective action. Now the partners are needed, especially now that the Ukraine has lost complete and total ability to defend itself from the air. So they now need the partners to come and intervene in creating air ceasefire, no-fly zone. We hear all sorts from Zelensky. Now there's a desperation. There's a desperation because the Russians are now beginning to incorporate in maps that we see from Gerasimov, the head of the military in Russia. We are seeing a situation where they're incorporating parts of Odessa, Nikolaev into Russia. The ongoing battle in Zaporozhye is not going too well for the Ukrainians. They're already thinking one day they may cross the Dnipro and go and take the remaining part of the city, both in Zaporozhye and in Kherson. Russia's benefit is Ukraine's nightmare. So, October 7th is a very unique day. It's a day that has shaped the world in the Middle East and in the Eurasian continent. And who is the biggest player in all of this? America. America has found itself at a position both in Ukraine, and due to the Russia-Ukraine war and the Israeli war on the Gazans, or the Palestinians in Gaza, in a lose-lose situation. Lose-lose. They're losing in both sides. It's so bad in Europe's case that President Trump has found it very beneficial, very economical, that he should, the very pertinent, necessary to extricate America from the war in Ukraine, move them away from that war, farm it out and give it to the Europeans who don't seem to have the ability to control generations, centuries-old hatred among themselves. Let it be their problem. He has successfully extricated America from that project, and he has said that the only real role America will play will be that of a weapons seller to the European states, who can now move it to NATO, and NATO can move it to Ukraine. Today it emerged that without the antagonism and possibly corruption of President Biden, the American president, this war would not have started. The CIA in America released a report today, released a redacted report, very redacted, very heavily redacted. I saw the report that showed that President Biden did all he could to kill a report that found out that his son had some corrupt dealings in Ukraine. His son was in a board of a Ukrainian oil company called Burisma. We should know also that Ukraine played a very prominent part in American history when President Trump sought to have that report more about what was going on in Ukraine from President Zelensky. At that time, Zelensky came to ask for aid, and because of that, one member of the National Security Council, who was Ukrainian incidentally, reported to Congress, whistleblower, he said he was a blue whistleblower, to Congress that President Trump harassed Zelensky, and that was not what he was supposed to do. The Democrats then took it up upon themselves, and they went ahead, put out a vote, and impeached President Trump. It's just that the bar to remove an American president was a little bit higher in the Senate. And in the Senate, that impeachment ran into problems. But he was impeached. It's on record that he was impeached by that action of the Ukrainians. Biden had something to hide, and Biden did everything when he became president in 2019, he won the election. 2020, he became president, and he did all he could to undermine, insult, and tell the Russians that they had no say in the sovereign choices of Ukraine. It was very disrespectful of Putin. But this is a president who, at the time he was vice president, the president of America had warned that an attempt to start or encourage Ukraine into war was not good because Russia had escalatory dominance. The Russians were not really aware of their own capacity at that time. In fact, it is a very famous quote by a political scientist, one of the world's most renowned, John Mearsheimer, who said that the Americans and the West were leading Ukraine down a primrose path if they continue to push NATO expansion on Ukraine. NATO expansion was the excuse that Biden used in telling Putin that he would destroy the Russian economy if he dared to challenge Ukraine. Ukraine is now a broken country. 4 blasts have left them. They have lost it. They have no capacity to take it back. They may, because the history of Eastern Europe is one of changing land and changing fortunes. So maybe a few decades from now, a few years from now, who knows, maybe a century or two. You know, one of the things people forget is that Poland dominated Russia at a time for 250 years. Poland, you won't believe it now, but that's what history shows us in one point in time. So the graph and the map of Europe keeps changing, especially in that Euro-Asian space. So who knows, maybe one day Ukraine may be the size of Russia and Russia will be the size of Ukraine. We never know. But until then, at this point in time, Ukraine may just lose more oblasts. John Mearsheimer even threatened, or even said that if they don't come to a compromise soon, they may lose 4 more oblasts. And we also hear some Russian representatives at the meetings going on when they were having their Istanbul meetings, as Ukraine chose not to listen to the concerns of the Russians. They told them that the next time we'll be having a meeting like this, you may be losing another 4 oblasts. It just seems like, because we see the pressure of the Russians in Kherson, in Zaporizhia, in Sumy, in Kharkiv, unrelenting. The contact line is 1,500 miles long or kilometers. And Ukrainian military is stretched thin. They are doing everything to constrict new recruits, including kidnapping them on the road. And we see these images. Ukraine is in a bad place. Zelensky is in a desperate place. And the Europeans have been so broken by Putin that the choices they've made have left their economies battered. The European political class in disarray. Today, France, big political crisis there. They need to possibly make President Macron to resign. As regards to Britain, they've had so many cycles of changes in government that it won't be long. One person may soon challenge Keir Starmer. There's problem in that political elite class. And today, October 7th, the Germans Metz was very sad today that all the protests in support of Palestine does not take the fact that Israel lost people. He feels that all those protests anti-Semitic. He doesn't want the world to remember that it was the Germans who killed 6 million Jews. They are now protectors and defenders of the state of Israel, although this state of Israel is being certified a genocidal state by so many reports, human rights report, Amnesty International, rapporteur of human rights in the UN, not me, please. For those who don't like the fact that I put out news and facts as I see it, it has nothing to do with me. I only just take the facts and put them all together. And the fact is that many, many other people, beside myself, have said that this is the reality. October 7th changed it. And going forward, now we hear that Israel was not very happy with the outcome of the 12-day Iran war, and they want to revisit that matter. It won't happen. There's a vast accumulation of military hardware, American military hardware around the Gulf, in Qatar and all those countries. So, and even in Europe. So it's been conjectured that another attack on Iran is coming. The Iranians are preparing, they are warning, they are posturing, they are telling the whole world that it will not be like it was the last time. But if you ask me, it won't happen. The Americans have been given a black eye in Europe. They've lost quite a lot of goodwill due to the activities and the intransigence of Netanyahu in the Middle East. And they've come to the realization that their economy, which was their mainstay and which funded their ability to hold 4 theaters of war simultaneously, is not at the point where it used to be. They are trying to restructure, so they need to move back from never-ending wars. And for that simple reason, despite his best effort, despite the support of Congress he has, the American politicians in both the Senate and Congress, despite the support Netanyahu has, I should point out that now those supporters, when they go to have town hall meetings in their own constituencies, they are being challenged. Why do they take money from Israeli lobby? Are they American first or are they Israel first? They are being asked hard questions. It's new to them. It used to be that support of Israel was a sure way of getting re-elected. Now, as the midterm election comes, they may be re-evaluating their positions and they may be watching the trend. That trend has changed. October 11th, 12th, 7th has changed it. Nobody saw the world being in this place and in this point where even AIPAC is under pressure, despite their immense influence and power and access to unlimited funds in America. They control the tech industry, they control the banking industry. You put those two industries together, they constitute 90% of the New York Stock Exchange. All the others are just fillers. So if they control those two industries, they control the whole of the American economy. Believe it, that's how powerful members of AIPAC and the Israeli lobbies are. But it may just not be enough. Now they will want to start keeping a distance from them or start, and that's where it is. So this is the reality that October 7th has created. A changed Middle East and a changed Euro-Asian continent. October 7th, President Putin's birthday, and October 7th, the day Hamas attacked Israel and gave Israel an excuse to go ahead to try and destroy Gaza and chase out the Palestinians. It's just that they didn't see the backlash and the reaction of the world collectively. This is where I end my video for today. If you're new to my channel, please subscribe. If you have any views regarding the opinions I've expressed in this video, please put them in the comment section. Do well to like and share. Until I see you in my next video. Goodbye.